Hi, everyone. So, welcome to this live stream where we're going to talk about some recent updates with US immigration. Um, there has been so much. I feel like this month has been packed already with so many immigration updates that now I feel like every single week I'm giving you an update. So, there are three specific updates that I want to cover. Feel free as you are joining me to say hi in the comments, to ask me questions. Okay, this live is for you. So make sure you're asking your questions. And if you want to, if you don't feel comfortable asking publicly, feel free to DM me or schedule a strategy session so that we can actually talk about your situation and I can see what you qualify for. So let's get into the first update. If you are applying for citizenship in 2025 and you have been dragging your feet to get that application out, you may want to do it before October 20th because starting October 20th, we are going to now have a new civics test. So since 2008, we've had the same civics test for anyone applying for naturalization. So if you have a green card and you want to become a citizen, you have to go through an interview. You have to pass a test. There's the English reading, the English writing, and of course, your interview is taking place in English. And then you also have this basically US history test that you are doing in order to become a citizen. And this test has, like I said, has been the same since 2008. And the 2008 version of it had 100 questions for people to study. However, during the interview, you only have to get 6 out of 10 questions correct in order to pass your civics. Starting October 20th, so if you file your application on or after October 20th, you now will have 128 questions to study, and the officer gets to pick 20 questions out of that 128, and you have to get 12 correct. So it's going to be much harder. It's going to be longer, right? Um, and people are going to get more nervous. When it comes to these tests, like I always tell people, if you study, you should be fine. However, I understand, right? I understand how stressful it can be. I remember when my mom was studying for her test, like she had the CDs in her car. So as she's going to work, she's listening to the 100 questions over and over. So I do understand how hard it can be. However, one thing that I always tell people is if you study and, are able to take in the information, you do the practice test, you should be okay, right? They're still going to update the learning thing. So typically they have the PDF of all the questions. They may have an audio version of all the questions. So however you learn best, you may want to use that to learn, okay? But just know starting October 20th, it's going to be that 128 questions for you to study, and you have to get 12 out of 20 correct in order to pass the civics test. They are planning on announcing more changes to the citizenship test. So stay tuned. As they're announcing these changes, I think they're saying over the next few weeks, we should be getting more information on additional changes that's going to come to the nationalization process. As those are coming in, I will be updating you, but this is a big one. They tried to do this during the last Trump administration, but it didn't really go through. So they're just bringing it back, right? They're just bringing it back. So be prepared, study as much as possible. One resource for clients that are local to me in Worcester, Massachusetts, we have our local library actually has citizenship classes. So you can take classes where not only do you have the study materials, but you are in a class setting where you can maybe get more out of it. So definitely take advantage of every single way that you can study, especially now that there's going to be up to 20 questions and you have to get 12 correct instead of 6 out of 10 correct. All right. I see a question. My K1 visa petition was sent to Department of State on August 19th, but I still haven't heard from them. And I'm the beneficiary from Ghana. What should I do? So it's not so the State Department will send it to the embassy once the embassy is ready to schedule your interview. So unfortunately, when it comes to the K1 visa, the National Visa Center doesn't take in like your visa application and then get you in line for an interview. The embassy lets the National Visa Center know when to send them your file. So you have to wait for that to happen so that you can have your interview. However, while you're waiting for that, you can start putting things together for your interview, like doing your DS-160, getting the I-134 prepared. There are steps that you can take while you're waiting for that interview to be scheduled so that once your interview is scheduled, you can just go, and know that you have everything ready to go, okay? But the only thing you typically can't do before you get that interview notice is your medical exam. But everything else you should start putting together. But there's really, you just have to wait. Ghana is one of the countries that typically has their interview pretty quickly. So if it's August, we're in September. It's only been a month since it was sent to the National Visa Center. So you just have to wait, typically within 6 months or less. That's what we're seeing for Ghana right now when it comes to the interviews, right? So you just have to wait. Unfortunately, you do have to wait. All right. So remember, if you have questions, please put them in the comments. I am more than happy to pause in between and answer your questions because that's why you're here, right? You want the updates and you want your questions answered. So feel free to put them in the comments. All right. So next thing is the DV lottery, right? As if you have followed me for any length of time, you know that I always tell you about the DV lottery for the countries that can still apply for the DV lottery. I'm from Nigeria. Nigeria is no longer able to apply for the DV lottery, which is such a shame. But for the countries that do, every single year, there's a time frame for you to apply. Go ahead and apply. However, this year there's going to be some changes, and I want you to be prepared for those changes. And one of the updates is that now there's going to be a fee, right? In order to register, there's now going to be a fee that you would need to pay in order to basically enter the lottery. This is new. This is not how it has been. It is, a nominal fee. It's a $1 fee. However, you need to know about that before you start filing, because if you do not if you do not pay attention to that fact and you go there that day to register but you don't have the required payment, you're not going to be able to register. Okay, so really important that you pay attention to the new requirements. So one of the new requirements in addition to this fee is that you have to have your passport and you have to upload a picture of your passport, a JPEG picture of your passport with your registration. So if you do not already have a passport and you want to enter the lottery, go get your passport. Okay, go get your passport right now. Like I said, the window to apply for the lottery is very small. It's a very short window, so you want to make sure you have everything that you would need before the window opens and you go to register. So there's going to be new rules for the DV lottery. Pay attention to the new rules so that you can actually be in a good position to win the lottery. I feel like the way things are right now, there's going to be a lot of people disqualified just off of not meeting the basic requirements. And if you are one of those that met the basic requirements, you will be giving yourself a leg up over others. So just think about that when you are looking to apply. All right. All right. So for the K1, do you receive a welcome letter from the National Visa Center? It is very different from an I-130 marriage-based welcome letter. You're going to get an email on the email address you had on file, letting you know that they have received your case and that they are waiting for the embassy to request your file. That's really what you're going to get. There's not going to be like a email that has like a login information where you log in somewhere and take some steps. That's not what happens with a K1. If it's a marriage base, then that's how you can do that. And can I try and get my own interview date? You can certainly try. Some embassies, not all, but some embassies will allow you to basically create an account, complete your DS-160, create the account, make the payment, do all of that, and be able to schedule right on their embassy page. Some embassies will send you the interview. So it will depend on which one the embassy is doing. So there's nothing wrong with trying to see if you can get that interview scheduled. If you're able to get the interview scheduled, typically the embassy will then reach out to the National Visa Center and ask them to send the file. And you'll get a notification from the National Visa Center once they have sent the file over. So it really is embassy specific when it comes to that. All right. The next one that I want to cover, the next update, is that there is still time if you want to comment on the social media handles being added to forms, right? The request for social media handles being added to forms. If you want to comment on that, whether you're like, yay, let's do it, or no, please don't do this for whatever reasons that you have until October 16th to make your comment, okay? It's on the Federal Register. And basically, this new rule, right? It's a rule that they're trying to pass. This new rule will make it so that on the forms, so like, for example, the green card application form, that one specifically, they want that to now have a space where it asks you for all of your social media handles for the past 5 years. If you have done the DS-260, you know that it asks you that on the DS-260. It asks you for your social media handles, and you have to provide it. And here's the reason this matters, okay? Some people don't even have access to some of their social media handles that they have had in the past. Like they close it out and they no longer have access to it. So they feel that they don't need to provide it. However, under this rule, if you had it in the past 5 years, regardless of whether it's still active or not, you still have to disclose it. Okay, that's the important thing to note here. It's not whether you're still using the social media account. It's not whether you're posting or not. If you have one, you have to disclose it, and this includes Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of it, LinkedIn, right? Any social media handle you have, they're now going to ask for it. You have until October 16th, 2025 to make a comment, either pro or against this rule, okay? The reason that I'm not necessarily for it is because people forget. People forget that they had, an Instagram account that they opened but never really used and kind of forgot about it, and then they went and opened a new one. People forget. It's not that they're trying to hide anything. They just forget that they had it. So what's going to happen is the form is going to ask you for these social media handles. You don't remember that you had it, so you don't disclose it. And then USCIS finds it because, the social media companies are able to share information if they want to, right? So they find that account, and now they're saying they will turn around and use that to say that you lied on your application. So that's why I don't like it. Is that it is just like, even when they put it on the DS260, the first thing that came to my mind is that this is an easy way for them to say that someone misrepresented information by not disclosing their social media. Again, it's no like, oh, I didn't remember that one, or oh, I don't even use it. Doesn't matter if you use it, doesn't matter if you have closed the account. If you had it, you have to disclose it. And that's what this new rule is going to do, is have that now be part of some of USCIS forms. Again, this is already part of the State Department forms. For example, the DS260, it's already in there, okay? But now they want to make it part of USCIS forms as well. So if you want to comment pro or against, go ahead and do that on the Federal Register. And you have until October 16th, 2025 to make your comments. All right. So those are the three main things that I want to talk to you about. And then, since we're talking about social media, just know that what you post on social media is going to be used against you. Okay. What you post on social media is now going to be used against you. So if there's, so they're looking at whether your posts are anti-American, right? What that definition is, we don't know. But the officers will have to decide whether the post is anti-American, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel. There's a lot, right, that they're looking at there. So First Amendment rights, I guess, are out the window when it comes to that. One thing that the State Department has said is that if you make posts that they believe makes light of the death of Charlie Kirk, that they will ban you from getting a visa to the US, which again can be stretched to USCIS. Again, they are looking at your social media. They are looking at the things you put out there in the world. So be careful what you're posting. Do not, the rule of thumb now for my clients is, would Marco Rubio think that this is okay, right? And if he can find some sort of thing that is like, oh, this is so anti-American, even if it's something minor, please don't post it. That's the new like test that I do now, is would the secretary of the Department of State, right? Would the head of the Department of State think this is anti-American, think this is like making light of Kirk's death? That's the test now. When it comes to posting on social media, First Amendment rights apparently does not apply here, right? So please be careful what you post. You can have internal opinions, okay, of what you think about the way the country is run, the way things are. You can have those. You can have private conversations. However, when things are in the public domain, just know they can be used against you if you are applying for a benefit in the US. And this is if you're applying for a visa, a green card, or citizenship, because remember, until you are a US citizen, you are not safe. And if you are a naturalized US citizen, you may not be as safe as, a US born citizen. So be very careful, be very diligent in the way that you are using social media. Okay. So that's my spiel on social media for today. So just to go over the three things that I want to bring to your attention. First one, there's a civics test when you apply for naturalization. So if you file your naturalization application on October 20th or after, you're not going to be taking the 2025 test, which will give you 128 questions to study. And then during the interview, you would need to get 12 out of 20 correct. Okay. The DV lottery, just know there's now a fee to enter the lottery. So there's going to be a $1 fee to enter the lottery. And they're most likely going to have you upload a JPEG picture of your passport as part of that application process. And then finally, there's still time to comment on the Federal Register about the rule about putting social media handles as a question on different forms, including the green card application form. Right. So if you have questions, please do put them in the comments. Okay. Put them in the comments. I want to make sure that I am answering your questions and you are getting as much value out of these lives as possible. All right. Sorry, guys. Missed the question. When you make a FOIA request and they basically don't send you what you request, should I approach the congressman? It depends on what you are requesting. So depending on what exactly you're requesting, it may be that you don't qualify to receive it. Okay, I'll give you a quick example. So if the beneficiary of an I-130 requests the I-130 application, they may not be able to get it because it's the petitioner's application, right? So the beneficiary will not have the legal right to that form or to that document. So just look at what are you requesting. Is it something that is yours or is it something that belongs to someone else? If it's something that belongs to someone else, what legal authority do you have to get it? So there's steps to a FOIA request. Now, if it's something that belongs to you, let's say your green card application, you want a copy of your green card application and it's not included in what they send you, then in that case, there's some appeal that you can do within the FOIA process to try and get that. And you can also get a congressperson's help to try and move that appeal forward. And sometimes they may be able to do the FOIA request on your behalf. So it does not hurt to reach out to a congressperson and see if they're willing to do that and help you basically with that whole process. But you want to make sure that you are requesting something that you qualify to receive. That's always the thing with FOIAs is if you don't qualify to receive it, you're not going to get it. So for example, if I want things that belongs to like my father, for example, I can't get a copy of his file. So it's really important that that's important. It belongs to my green card and the officer that approved it. They approved via call, but I need a call log or written indication that they approved over the phone. You may not get that. If the green card application was approved, then if you look at, you can request a copy of your file. You can request a copy of your entire file and see exactly what, if it was approved. So the form itself, the I-485, typically when it's in your FOIA and there's a decision made, there will be a stamp on it that says approved and will have the date it was approved on that form. However, the call log, if it's recorded, it's, you know, it's really hard to get a call log from USCIS. So you may want to be more specific about actual form, right? So it depends on the actual form that you're looking at or actual document. But if it's like a recorded call, you're probably not going to get that, especially they can just, if it wasn't recorded, sometimes their calls are not recorded. So if that's the case, you would need to, I would say, I see all your other comments. I will say I can't really answer that question on this live. I would need way more information to be able to better direct you. or you can reach out to a congressperson. But as far as like recordings, audio recordings, you're probably not going to get that from USCIS. Okay. If you want like actual documentation of when they approved the case or something like that, that is a more, that is something that you can potentially get. All right. So remember, if you have questions, put them in the comments. If you're watching this on a replay and you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments because, again, these lives are to answer as much of your questions as I possibly can. Remember, I am not your, I am not your attorney. I am an immigration attorney, but I am not your attorney in these lives. So I can only give you general information. If you want a more individualized, um, session where you can ask me questions, where I can look at your documentation and be able to best direct you on what the next steps should be. The best way to do that is to schedule a free 15-minute strategy session with me. You can do that by going to my website, lilylegal.com, click on Contact Us, and you'll be able to see the dates and times that I'm available and be able to schedule a time on my calendar right from my website. So that would be the best way to reach out if you are looking for a more detailed, time with me to ask me your questions, where I can actually look at documentation and be able to give you my actual legal opinion on your particular situation. Okay. So those are all the updates I have for you today. Hopefully nothing crazy happens in the next week. And if it does, I will bring it to you, right? That's the whole point of these lives, is that if something does happen, that there's a new change in immigration law, I will be here with you answering your questions and updating you on what those changes are. So remember, if you want to apply for citizenship and you're just dragging your feet, do you want to study 128 questions, or do you want to study 100 questions and only have to get 6 out of 12, 6 out of 10 correct, or 12 out of 20 correct? I'm just saying, I prefer the 6 out of 10, but if you do not qualify right now, or if there's a reason that you're holding off applying for citizenship, hold off. Okay. Don't let this test force you to apply sooner than you are ready, or sooner than you qualify, because that's just going to open up a whole new can of worms that you don't want. So make sure that if you do qualify and you've just been dragging your feet and there's nothing, you know, as far as requirements, there's nothing that's stopping you other than you're just not ready, fine. In that situation, you may want to apply before October 20th, just so you can have an easier test versus applying on or after October 20th, where you will have a much harder test and a much longer test as well. And if you, I forgot to mention this earlier, but if you want to skip the civics test or any of the tests, there are ways to be able to do that. There are exceptions. The only way for you to skip a civics test, the history test, the only way to do that is by filing a form N648 that from your doctor saying that you have a medical condition that makes it impossible for you to learn or impossible for you to do that civics test. And they have to say what the medical diagnosis is and the prognosis and all of that. How did they come to that conclusion? They have to put that on that form, and that is filed with your naturalization application. And then the officer will review it. And if they agree, oh, I don't know what just happened. So if you're on Instagram, I think I just like dipped out. But the officer gets to make those decisions. So it's really important that as you are going through the process and you are thinking maybe you do have a medical condition that would qualify, you want to make sure that you are getting that form filled out by a medical doctor. Okay, not a nurse, not a nurse. A medical doctor has to fill it out. There's specific professions that can fill it out. If they're not one of those, don't even let them touch the form. Okay. And then if you just want to take the test in your language and you don't want to take it in English, then you may want to look at the different other exceptions. Okay. So there's the age exception. So the 50-15 and the 55-10. So that basically, or is it, listen, it's the 50-20, 55-15 test. So if you are over, if you're 55 or older and you've had your green card for 15 years, you get to skip the English part. Okay. So I've had clients that come to me and they're just nervous about the English part. You still have to do the civics. Remember, your age and how long you've had your green card does not waive the civics. Okay. You still have to do the civics, but you get to do it in your language. You get to do the whole interview in your language. You have to go with an interpreter and all of that. But you get to skip basically the English requirement, but you still have to do the civics. But if you want to skip the civics, talk to your medical doctor. Do you have a diagnosis that would be that will cause you to be exempt from that civics test? And typically, if you're exempt from the civics test, you are most likely exempt from the English reading and writing test as well. Okay. But yeah, that's what I have for you today. If you have questions, put them in the comments. If you're watching on a replay and you have questions, put them in the comments. And if you, after watching this and you're like, oh, wait, I have a question, feel free to DM me, Instagram, Facebook. It's all Lily Legal. Go ahead and DM me with your question and I'll probably answer it there and then just address it on the next live, which is going to be next week, Friday. If nothing blows up between now and then with my schedule, I will be here next week, Friday, with more updates, questions, answering your questions as always. So please feel free to join me then. And then as well, we're going to continue having our Tuesday videos. So if you're on YouTube or Facebook, you should see every single Tuesday. We have Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on our schedule. But typically on a Tuesday, you'll see a recorded video from me that just talks about a specific topic that you may find interesting. And if you don't, you may know someone that needs to watch it. So feel free to share those as well. And if you're still joining me and you've gotten value out of this, please like this video, okay? Thank you all so much. As always, I am Attorney Lillian Chukura. I am a U.S. immigration attorney, and I do help my clients get green cards and citizenships for themselves and their families using the U.S. immigration law system. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week.